Thanks for staying on with us. I'm Ritangshu Bhattacharya. Ladies and gentlemen, if you were a resident of the national capital, chances are you would have started your Monday with a rather unpleasant jolt from your bed at precisely 5:37 this morning. Yes, Delhi faced a rather rude jolt this morning when it was struck by an earthquake that was unanimously regarded by most people who endured it as the worst in recent memory. A tremor that was particularly scary, not just in terms of the vibrations, but also in terms of the noise. Most people described it as if a train was running underground them. Listen in.
बहुत तेज भूकंप आया था और आवाज भी बहुत तेज आई थी।
फिर एकदम से हमने नीचे रश किया और सारे के सारे इवैक्यूएट हुए।
अचानक थोड़ी शेकिंग फील हुई, हमें लगा नॉर्मल है, शायद हमारे ये बाइक पर ट्रैवल करने से हो रही है, मतलब बाद में फील हुआ कि हाँ भूकंप भी था।
कुछ ऐसे कंपन सा महसूस हुआ, ज्यादा नहीं, बहुत माइल्ड कह सकते हैं।
अचानक हमें लगा कि जैसे कुछ हिला, उससे फील हुआ कि हाँ कुछ तो हुआ है 5-5:30 बजे के करीब।
Well, it turns out that the earthquake was a rather benign 4.0 on the Richter scale. Then how was it so potent? Well, there are two reasons. One was that it was epicentered bang in the middle of Delhi, Dhaula Kuan to be precise. Secondly, the epicenter was just 5 kilometers below the surface.
Is that Delhi falls in the seismic zone 4. Could you explain to us with the help of the display behind you what that exactly means, how vulnerable is the city and where exactly was the epicenter?
Actually, in the epicenter zone in the New Delhi, if you could the detail, then you can see it was occurred in the, it was very new to Dhaula Kuan, okay? It was in the Jheel Park. Right. So it was the New Delhi periphery. It was the map was a larger scale. So it was the, you can say that the Jheel Park or some school near to school was there. So the zone 3 and 4 is the actually classification of seismic hazard zone in Delhi. Okay, so this was a very crude hazard zonation map. But if you do the zonation of the already micro zonation, means zonation of the zones, you found that soil property is varying. Okay. So in this hazard zone 4, it is found that the earthquake happens. But this is not all Delhi is the 4 zone. It was the 3 zone because only your Jamuna alluvial plains, they are the
more sensitive.
More sensitive. So maybe amplification taking place those are hazards. But as you go from the tougher and the stable part or maybe the harder rock, the zone become 3.
Okay, so maybe this is the reason why the intensity of it when it is felt along Noida, along the Yamuna bank, as well as in different areas in Delhi is also different.
Yes, you are right.
But then that's what got us thinking. If this was the impact of a 4.0 earthquake, what would be the impact of a more potent one? Let's understand something. A Richter scale is not a linear one, where the difference between a 3.0 to 4.0 is the same between that of 4.0 to 5.0. No, a 5.0 earthquake is actually 10 times stronger than a 4.0 and a 6.0 earthquake is 10 times stronger than a 5.0. So can you imagine the impact of a 6.0 earthquake, an earthquake that would have been 100 times more powerful than what we face today if it was epicentered in Delhi? Ladies and gentlemen, there's a reason why we're concerned. 59% of India is vulnerable to earthquakes. At least 38 cities of India are in the high-risk seismic zone. 90% of people who actually die in earthquakes die because they're living in unsafe houses and unsafe structures. Insufficient gaps between buildings can cause overcrowding, reduce airflow, compromising the stability of the structure. The use of poor quality construction material is so common for builders who try and avoid and try and make the maximum profit out of the money. Weak ground floors, because you will see these ground floors in which the ground floors are hollowed out to create parking spots and the entire structure is standing on some tiny spindly pillars. They were compromising the entire building's integrity. Many of these high-rises are built with unplanned structures that lack the ductile design, which means that they're not viable to stretch in the case of any tension in terms of a seismic tension. And when floors are added, often illegally, you don't realize that the foundation of the building is not deepened. So that puts extra pressure on the entire structure. These are red flags to look forward to understand whether your high-rise is a death trap. So ladies and gentlemen then, today was a warning. It's long been thought that urban India lives in death traps in terms of fire safety or lift operability. But how safe is a building from the next earthquake? That's what we're going to debate today. I'm being very happy to be joined by a panel of eminent experts. I'm being joined by, first of all, Dr. Sushil Rohela, who is the former scientist and head of Geophysics, Wada Institute of Himalayan Geology in Dehradun. I'm also being joined by Professor Anil Gupta, who is the CEO of the Integrated Center of Adaptation, Disaster Resilience and Sustainability at ICAS at IIT Roorkee, the Greater Noida campus. And I'm also being joined by Dr. Sudhir Krishna, who is the former Secretary of the Ministry of Urban Development. Thank you all for joining me at this point. Let me begin first by Dr. Sushil Rohela. Dr. Rohela, let me ask you the question that's been on the mind of everyone who felt the earthquake today from Delhi-NCR. It didn't feel like a 4.0 magnitude earthquake. It felt a lot worse. Why was that, Dr. Rohela?
A particular earthquake was very shallow, at 5 kilometers only. That's why the shaking cone was very, very narrow. And the people, those were in that range particular, they felt very, very, very strongly this earthquake. And I would like to say that because, people were asking that a lot of sound were there. It was shallow and the seismic waves, P and S waves, primary and secondary waves, the particle, when the earthquake triggered, the energy travels in the form of seismic waves. And in seismic waves, the P wave, the particle basically traveled in the elastic system from one place to another place to transfer the energy. And that transpiration, basically the surrounding, create the sound at this very, very, very dangerous or very high sound, very dangerous sound that created. People heard that.
Yes, that explains something, because I think the common experience which all of us had, Dr. Rohela, was that we were woken up not just by the tremors itself, but also by the sound. I mean, many people said on social media that it felt as if they were experiencing a train run underground, and that sound was, according to many accounts, including my own, a lot more scarier than the tremors itself. So, Dr. Rohela, you are saying that contrary to what we've often felt, it's not just the headline figure of what is on the Richter scale, 4.0, 5.0, 6.0, which matters, but also as to how shallow, how deep the epicenter was inside the ground. And because this is 5.0 earthquake, this was felt a lot more. Because it was just 5 kilometers below the surface of the ground, it was felt a lot more. Now, the point is, then the next question which comes to my mind as a layman, Dr. Rohela, is that what if tomorrow we find an earthquake which is much higher in magnitude, say a 5.0 or even a 6.0? One thing which, Dr. Rohela, I like you to clarify to our viewers is that the Richter scale is not a linear scale. So a 5.0 earthquake is actually 10 times stronger than a 4.0 earthquake. So if we have a 5.0 or a 6.0 earthquake, we are looking at an earthquake which is probably 100 times stronger, and at such a shallow depth, that could be catastrophic, Dr. Rohela.
Yeah, but this will not happen because, if you're talking about the earthquake of magnitude 5, this was 4 magnitude earthquake. And if you're talking about the 5 or 6 magnitude earthquake, so certainly this is a Richter is a logarithmic scale, and 10 times is the fold of energy that created due to that particular earthquake. And in this earthquake, to create the 6 magnitude earthquake, the depth will not be such shallow earthquake because, when the stress accumulated inside, and when the rock basically get the stress exceed the rock strength, then this energy radiated. And this is seismic zone 4. We are in Delhi, and in this such a zone, earthquake of 5 to 7 magnitude are expected. And in 2021, if you are in 2023, there were several such tremors, 3 to 4.7 magnitude up to. We have Wada Institute analyzed those tremors very carefully, and they found that there are some regional fault system, like Mahendragarh Dehradun fault is there, and Delhi-Hardwar ridge is there, which is basically at shallow level, and that is basically in Delhi, and this is basically the stress basically accumulated along this particular ridge as well. And we are very near to the Himalayan seismic belt, which is the main seismic belt of India, where the Indian and Eurasian plates are colliding, and whole northwest southeast 2400 kilometer belt is seismically active. And some part of the stress that is accumulated there, the backthrow, it will come this side also, and these faults, the regional faults, will get activated and create earthquakes. Here it is not like that. The high magnitude earthquake can trigger immediately. like in Himalayas. So nothing to worry about that.
Okay, all right. Let me now that's great. Nothing to worry about. I'm sure everyone who faced the earthquake is still having a slight panic attacks about what happened. Let me come across to go to my other gentlemen as well who are with me on the panel. Professor Anil Gupta. The fact remains that Delhi, if I'm not mistaken, is in an extremely vulnerable zone. In fact, the entire Himalayan belt is from what my layman knowledge tells me, is on the cusp of two tectonic plates, and as a result, Delhi is one of the most is in the second most dangerous zone, if I'm not mistaken, when it comes to vulnerability to earthquakes here. Does an earthquake like today, which just left us a lot of us shaken and stirred in James Bond's words, but thankfully safe, serve as a valuable reminder as to the fact that things could go a lot worse in North India, especially around the national capital?
I totally agree with you on this, because past 15 or 20 years, the kind of development Delhi-NCR has seen and the kind of buildings which have come up, that has contributed greatly to the increasing vulnerability of Delhi to earthquakes. Not only the increasing number and the buildings, but population density also. Because damage always relates that what kind of damage and then how many people are exposed. So this tremor that took place this morning is a reminder and a very strong and serious alert that Delhi is a very prone earthquake prone region, and we should be very serious about it. Many times what happens when a tremor comes, like Nepal earthquake was there, we were talking about Delhi earthquake, Delhi's vulnerability. When the Uttarakhand earthquake is there, we talk, and then we forget. And then the kind of buildings start coming, particularly the low economic colonies are and many buildings which are coming, high rise buildings. Some of the buildings, they are following proper standards, some of the buildings they are not following proper standards, and the customers basically they are not clearly aware that which is earthquake safe building. Second thing, Delhi is prone to earthquake also, but Delhi is prone to other disasters as well. So we also need to look at multi-hazard vulnerability, because one system is, if we make it safe only for floods, it is not safe for earthquake, it is not going to serve the purpose. And it requires basically a kind of safety culture backed by the appropriate knowledge of science and technology. Understanding of earthquake requires not huge and a great technological advances. The understanding is very simple. There are very simpler principles which can be understood with a little bit knowledge of technology, that what is an earthquake resistant or earthquake safe building. And even if we just compare an earthquake resistant building and earthquake vulnerable building, there is not a huge economic difference. There will be a little bit additional cost, and the building can be earthquake resilient. So, and second thing is earthquake behavior also. But the people's behavior also counts a lot. That are we really prepared? Are we really knowing that in case of earthquake, what really we have to do? There was a concept like...
I will come to you. Professor Gupta, I'll tell you what. Professor Gupta, that is a separate question, but which I will come to you to address as to how should people behave in an earthquake. That's a different thing. Today, I was stuck in an earthquake on the 17th floor. I honestly did not know what to do to get out of a building in that case. The point is what you mentioned before that in terms of how Delhi's, let's not why Delhi, even NCR, whether it be Noida, Greater Noida, Ghaziabad, Gurgaon, how safe is NCR or how equipped is NCR really to deal in terms of urban infrastructure to deal with an earthquake? Dr. Sudhir Krishna, you are a former Secretary of the Ministry of Urban Development. Is it not a fact, Dr. Krishna, that given, even though Professor Gupta points out that the economic cost is not much in terms of having constructing earthquake safe structures, in a city where hardly any rule is maintained or is not flouted when it comes to construction in terms of the number of floors, in terms of the carpet areas which is permitted, they're all flouted by builders in order to try and maximize their profits. Earthquake resistance or earthquake safety is probably going to be the last on the priority scale, and is that not a concern for all of us?
Actually, it is indeed a concern, and I think National Building Code 2016 has made adequate provisions for making the building constructions, earthquake safe and other disaster safe. But these for the new buildings, which are coming up after the enforcement of the National Building Code provisions. So that has to be enforced, and the National Building Code provisions have to be incorporated in the building bylaws of the municipal bodies and other authorities who sanction the building plans. So that is one. And secondly, the buildings have to be inspected. The construction has to be inspected. That is where we are lacking. Because at the time of scrutiny of the plan, everything is checked properly. But while construction, is it happening or not? As we saw in the case of Chintal Paradiso, that, the building as approved was fine, but during construction, they did not follow what was provided in the design. And that led to the situation where so many multi-story towers are to be demolished now because they are not safe. I mean, these were unsafe even without earthquake, and in earthquake, it would have created havoc. So that number one is that the building bylaws should provide for the National Building Code provisions for disaster proofing the construction. That is one point. And secondly, the construction activity should be supervised. Now that is a big challenge because the municipal bodies are not equipped with manpower to inspect the construction activities, which was the olden time case was there. They used to inspect, but now they don't. And they give occupancy certificate based on third-party certification or sometimes they are not checking properly. So I think that has to be strengthened. That is number two. Number three, the existing older structures have to be inspected. The time has come that we can't wait for a major earthquake to come to, face the music. So I think older structures, particularly the one is the taller buildings and older flyovers, etc., which are there, number one. Number two, in the dense areas, like the slum areas and where the informal habitats are there, where people were settling on the sides of nalas, and now they have made 4 stories, Single story has become 4 stories now. And in earthquake case, it is prone to calamity and catastrophe. So I think a survey is required for these areas where, damages are likely to cause great havoc. And that has to be taken care of. That is 3. And then fourthly, I would say that the big billboards, the big billboards, advertisement boards, etc., they are very, very, I feel very nervous that they are put in all kinds of dense areas. And that should be, taken care that it should be subject to proper scrutiny and inspection. That if they collapse, it will cause tremendous damage to life and property. So all these are required to be taken up in a systematic manner. We should not wait for an earthquake to happen. This earthquake is a signal. Now, in the course of next 3 months, before onset of monsoon, let us complete all this exercise of inspection and disaster audit, and everything can be done. It is all doable, It is all doable. And last but not the least, awareness among the citizens. People hang flower pots away from their balconies and so on. And if this collapses, falls on it creates so much of damage. So people also have to be made aware of their role and responsibilities in managing or in mitigating the impact of earthquake.
No, but Dr. Sudhir Krishna, let's be realistic at this point. We are talking of cities where fire safety norms are violated at will. Emergency exists in many high-rise buildings. If you see, especially in satellite towns of Delhi, there is no fire safety norms in place. The corridors or the emergency exits are also blocked with furniture and all kinds of other crap. In terms of floor areas, they are often floated. You go to Delhi, to my understanding, there should not be a building of more than ground plus 3 floors without an elevator. I see buildings with 4, 5 floors above at this point, clearly in violation of the rules at this point. Most buildings have people staying without an occupancy certificate, without a completion certificate, without even registration here. At what all do we start policing? This is definitely, isn't this a major disaster waiting to happen? Most of northern India, most of NCR lives in buildings which are probably illegal today if the rule is applied in letter and spirit.
I think what you say is right, but then we cannot relax also. It is high time, as I said earlier, that this earthquake and such earthquake should trigger a warning bell in our mind. And I think it is high time. Your channel has taken up this cause also very good. I think it is not impossible. What the challenge is that the government departments, municipalities, they want to do it themselves. That may not work out because their staff is not enough. So what is required is to empanel private, surveyors. World over, it is like that only. In USA, if you go, the private surveyors do. Empaneled surveyors or registered surveyors are there. They will do the job for them. It doesn't cost much also because the work becomes a professional work and it is done on a prescribed norms. It does cost something, no doubt, but it is worth the investment. So I think it is a good time to take a resolution that all cities shall undertake infrastructure review for disaster proofing. And as earlier panelists said that all right, this opportunity we take not only for verifying or auditing due to in respect of earthquake, but also in respect of flooding, flood proofing also. The same thing can be done. It is worthwhile. It is worthwhile and it is quite doable also.
All right. Okay. Indeed, Dr. Krishna, let's build on that point which you have mentioned. Dr. Anil Gupta, I'll come to you for the last word before we move on. You had earlier mentioned, and also Dr. Krishna has also touched upon this aspect about how people react, or at least how people live and prepare for a possible earthquake is also important. So if you could tell our viewers who are watching us right now from urban India, not just from Delhi and NCR, but also from Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, a lot of citizens in these cities feel that, we don't have to bother about earthquakes. Our cities are not in earthquake-prone zones. But nevertheless, it can happen at any point in the country. It can happen at any urban area. How should people react when they face an earthquake? And also, is there anything we can do to be better prepared for an earthquake?
The earthquake preparedness, there are general principles, but there are also specific principles. We would be very clear that all general principles would not apply. For example, the low-rise building and high-rise buildings, there are variations. Then what kind of furniture? For example, you say that drop, cover and hold. But in case you have a glass dining table, that is not going to serve purpose. But in many places now, instead of wood tables, we have the glass tables. So there has to be a localized approach of earthquake safety awareness. And what I would reiterate that we need to drive basically a safety mission where we should start thinking about the safety. Each and every citizen should start from the first safety, and it should be a holistic one. If we just talk of earthquake and earthquake doesn't come for 5 months, 6 months, people will start forgetting, people will not take interest. So it should be a holistic safety mission for the people from all kind of hazards. And I think that would really help, because many times earthquakes are also combined with fire related hazards. There are short circuits during earthquakes also. There are failure of lift and other things people cannot use. And the high rise buildings, how many floors you can really walk down if you really want to come down. So what kind of approaches would apply to a particular society? And here, involving the resident welfare association and the society, that body basically, for that local level. So I think this is very important thing. And without waiting, I will support Sudhir Krishna ji that without any further wait, we should have a safety awareness mission for all the cities in India. And that should be supported with the technological understanding, basic technological understanding, that what is the minimum requirement for earthquake safe buildings. And then, yes, a large number of experts are required, and those kind of auditors, structural auditing, simple protocols of structural auditing, that these are the basic structural prerequisites are the imperatives. I think a few models and then replicating. That can be done, but it requires a all coordinated kind of approach. And I think Delhi should start thinking on those lines very seriously.
Thank you all for joining me, gentlemen, on this very important panel, and I hope our viewers have also taken a lot of takeaways from this important discussion.